Welcome to another peaceful journey through tech history, where we explore the gentle transformation of one of humanity's most sacred spaces. Tonight, we drift through the quiet revolution that turned libraries from hushed halls of books into digital sanctuaries of infinite knowledge. Close your eyes, settle into comfort, and let's begin this soothing story of how libraries became the digital havens we know today. Allow your breathing to slow and deepen as we embark on this tranquil voyage through time. In the soft glow of ancient Alexandria, long before computers hummed quietly in the night, librarians faced a timeless challenge. Picture the great library of Alexandria, where scholars like Callimachus worked by flickering candlelight, carefully organizing scrolls of papyrus into the world's first systematic catalog. The library stood like a beacon of learning beside the Mediterranean, its halls filled with the gentle rustling of papyrus and the soft footsteps of scholars from across the known world. Here, in rooms cooled by sea breezes, the first librarians developed methods that would echo through millennia. Callimachus, working with infinite patience in the 3rd century BCE, created what he called the Pinax, a catalog of all the library's holdings organized into 120 scrolls. Each entry was carefully written by hand, describing not just the content of works, but their authors, their origins, and their place in the vast web of human knowledge. These early librarians understood something profound about human nature, that knowledge, no matter how vast, becomes meaningless if it cannot be found. They developed gentle systems of organization, grouping scrolls by subject and author, creating the first whispered conversations between seeker and knowledge. Eratosthenes, another keeper of this ancient sanctuary, spent his days not just organizing knowledge, but creating it. Between his duties cataloging scrolls, he calculated the circumference of the earth with remarkable accuracy, demonstrating how libraries serve not just as repositories, but as workshops where new understanding is born. As you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine the quiet dedication of these ancient custodians, who spent their lives ensuring that wisdom could flow from one mind to another, like a gentle stream of understanding flowing through time. The soft scratch of reed pens on papyrus, the whispered discussions between scholars, the careful placement of each scroll in its designated alcove. All of this created the first template for what libraries would become. As centuries passed in quiet contemplation, the torch of knowledge preservation passed to medieval monasteries, where monks worked in peaceful scriptoriums, copying manuscripts by hand with devotional care. These monastery libraries were sanctuaries within sanctuaries, where the gentle scratch of quills on parchment created the only sounds beyond whispered prayers. Brother librarians developed their own systems of organization, often chaining valuable books to reading desks to prevent theft, but also creating the first lending systems where manuscripts could be borrowed by trusted scholars. The chain libraries of medieval Europe represented an early understanding that knowledge must be both protected and shared. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the monastery slept, dedicated scribes would work by candlelight, copying not just religious texts, but preserving the classical knowledge of Greece and Rome. Each manuscript was a labor of love, taking months or even years to complete, with illuminated letters that turned pages into works of art. The monastery of St. Gall in Switzerland developed one of the most sophisticated cataloging systems of the medieval period, with detailed inventories that described not just the content of books, but their physical condition, their provenance, and their location within the library. These careful records, maintained across centuries, became the foundation for modern library science. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg around 1440 brought a gentle revolution to the world of libraries. Suddenly, books could be produced in quantities that medieval scribes could never have imagined. The soft thud of the printing press, the smell of fresh ink on paper, and the sight of identical copies emerging from the same type marked the beginning of a new age. Libraries began to grow at unprecedented rates. The Biblioteca Medicia Lorenziana in Florence, designed by Michelangelo himself, represented a new vision of what a library could be. Not just a storage space for books, but an architectural celebration of learning with reading desks positioned to catch the gentle morning light streaming through tall windows. Librarians of the Renaissance faced new challenges as their collections expanded rapidly. They developed more sophisticated cataloging systems, often organizing books not just by subject, but by size, language, and date of publication. The gentle work of creating these catalogs became an art form in itself, with beautiful handwritten entries that described each book's contents with poetic precision. The Bodleian Library at Oxford, established in 1602, introduced innovations that would influence library design for centuries. Its Duke Humphreys Library, with its medieval atmosphere preserved intact, demonstrated how libraries could honor their past while embracing new possibilities. The soft creaking of ancient wooden floors, the filtered light through leaded windows, and the whispered conversations of scholars created an atmosphere of timeless learning. In this atmosphere of expanding knowledge, a Belgian lawyer named Paul Otlet had a dream in 1895. Working in the gentle gaslight of his Brussels office, Otlet envisioned something extraordinary, a way to catalog all human knowledge on simple index cards. Otlet's vision was born from witnessing the information explosion of the late 19th century. Scientific discoveries were accelerating, literature was flourishing, and newspapers were multiplying. He saw that traditional library catalogs, bound in heavy volumes, could not keep pace with the rapid growth of human knowledge. His project, called the Mundaneum, was born from a beautiful hope that if all knowledge could be organized and shared, perhaps humanity might find its way to peace. Otlet and his colleague Henry La Fontaine worked with the patience of monks, creating millions of index cards, each one a small bridge between a question and its answer. The Mundaneum grew to contain over 15 million index cards, each measuring exactly 12.5 by 7.5 centimeters, organized according to Otlet's universal decimal classification system. Visitors could submit questions and receive detailed bibliographies compiled from these cards, making the Mundaneum perhaps the world's first search engine operated entirely by human hands. Otlet's office became a pilgrimage site for information scientists from around the world. The gentle clicking of index cards being sorted and filed, the soft conversations between researchers, and the careful handwriting that filled each card created an atmosphere of scholarly devotion. This wasn't just about organizing information, it was about creating a sanctuary where any person could find any piece of human knowledge. Working late into the evening by the warm glow of gas lamps, Otlet and his assistants would carefully transcribe bibliographic information, cross-reference subjects, and create the intricate web of connections that made their system work. Each card was a small act of faith in the power of organized knowledge to improve human understanding. Their gentle vision planted the seeds for what would one day become our digital libraries, though they worked entirely with paper and human dedication. The Mundaneum represented humanity's first serious attempt to create a universal library accessible to all, organized for efficient retrieval, and constantly updated with new knowledge. In 1945, as the world emerged from the shadows of war, an American engineer named Vannevar Bush sat quietly in his study, troubled by how technology had been used for destruction. The atomic bomb, which he had helped to create, weighed heavily on his conscience. He began to dream of how technology might instead be used for understanding and connection. In his peaceful essay, As We May Think, published in the Atlantic Monthly, Bush described a device he called the Memex, a desk where a scholar could store all their books, records, and thoughts connected by invisible threads of association, though he imagined it built from microfilm and mechanical parts. Bush was describing something that wouldn't exist for decades, a personal digital library. Bush's study, filled with the gentle ticking of clocks and the soft rustling of papers, became the birthplace of ideas that would transform how humans interact with information. He envisioned a machine that could store vast amounts of text and images on microfilm, retrievable through a system of codes and mechanical selectors. But the truly revolutionary aspect of Bush's vision was his understanding of associative thinking. He realized that human memory works through gentle associations, not rigid categories. A smell might trigger a memory, which leads to another thought, which connects to a distant experience. Bush envisioned a machine that could follow the same soft pathways of thought, linking ideas the way our minds naturally wander from one memory to another. The Memex would allow its user to create trails through information, personal pathways that connected related ideas across different documents. These trails could be saved, shared with others, and followed again later, creating a personalized map through the landscape of human knowledge. Bush's vision was like a lullaby for the future, sung decades before the technology existed to make it real. He imagined scholars working late into the night, following trails of thought through their personal Memex, discovering connections that no traditional filing system could reveal. The gentle whir of mechanical selectors, the soft glow of projected text, and the satisfaction of finding unexpected connections would characterize this new relationship between human and machine. 20 years later, in the calm corridors of research institutions, a psychologist named J.C.R. Licklider began to see how Bush's dreams might become reality. Licklider, working at Bolt, Beranek, and Newman in Cambridge, Massachusetts, spent his days thinking about how computers might augment human intelligence rather than replace it. In his 1965 book, Libraries of the Future, written during quiet evenings in his home study, Licklider described something revolutionary: computers that could allow many people to access the same vast collection of knowledge simultaneously. He called this vision a procognitive system, technology that would enhance human thinking rather than simply automate human tasks. Licklider's office, filled with the gentle hum of early computers and the soft clicking of teletype machines, became a laboratory for imagining the future of human-computer interaction. He understood that the real power of computers lay not in their ability to calculate, but in their potential to store, organize, and retrieve vast amounts of information. His vision went beyond simple storage and retrieval. Licklider imagined systems that could understand the meaning of documents, that could answer questions posed in natural language, and that could learn from their interactions with users. He envisioned a future where the boundary between human knowledge and machine knowledge would blur, creating a symbiotic relationship between mind and computer. Licklider wasn't just thinking about storing information electronically. He was imagining a gentle network where knowledge could flow freely between minds, regardless of distance or time. His vision of pro-cognitive systems, computers that could enhance human thinking, was like a soft whisper of the internet age to come. Working in the peaceful hours of late-night research, surrounded by the quiet hum of primitive computers, Licklider laid the conceptual groundwork for what we now take for granted: the ability to access any library in the world from the comfort of our own homes. His ideas about time-sharing systems, where multiple users could access the same computer simultaneously, became the foundation for modern networked computing. In the quiet halls of the Library of Congress during the 1960s, a remarkable woman named Henriette Avram was solving a problem that seemed impossible. How do you teach a computer to understand the subtle complexities of a library catalog? How do you capture in digital form the rich relationships between ideas that librarians had been encoding in card catalogs for over a century? Avram's office, filled with the gentle clicking of key-punch machines and the soft whir of magnetic tape drives, became the birthplace of a revolution in library science. Working with the primitive computers of her time, machines that filled entire rooms and required careful climate control, Avram created something called MARC, machine-readable cataloging. The challenge was immense. Library catalogs contained not just simple facts like titles and authors, but complex information about relationships between works, detailed subject classifications, and subtle distinctions that required human judgment. Early computers were designed for numerical calculations, not for the nuanced world of bibliographic description. Working late into the evening, often alone in the computer center, with only the gentle hum of machines for company, Avram developed a way to encode all this complexity in a format that computers could understand. Each MARC record became like a small poem of metadata, describing not just what a book contained, but how it connected to the vast web of human knowledge. The MARC format allowed for variable length fields, full punctuation, and diacritical marks, capabilities that were far ahead of their time in the world of 1960s computing. Avram's innovation was like teaching computers to speak the quiet language of librarians, preserving centuries of cataloging wisdom while opening new possibilities for information retrieval. Her patient innovation made every digital library catalog possible. The gentle work of creating MARC records, with their carefully structured fields and precise encoding, became the foundation upon which all modern library automation would be built. Each record was a small act of translation, converting human knowledge about knowledge into a form that machines could process and share. As the 1980s arrived with their soft electronic hums, libraries began their gentle transformation. The first online public access catalogs, OPACs, appeared like digital dawn breaking over traditional card catalogs. These early systems, with their green screen terminals and simple command interfaces, represented humanity's first steps into the age of electronic information retrieval. The University of California system was among the pioneers, implementing the Melville catalog that connected libraries across multiple campuses. Students and faculty could now search the combined holdings of one of the world's largest library systems from any terminal, a capability that seemed almost magical after decades of consulting individual card catalogs. Imagine the quiet revolution in university libraries as students discovered they could search for books using keywords instead of knowing exact titles. The rigid alphabetical order of card catalogs gave way to the fluid, associative searching that felt more natural to human curiosity. A student researching environmental science could now find relevant books by searching for pollution or ecology, rather than having to know specific authors or exact titles. These early systems were simple, but they represented something profound: the first time in human history that a library's entire collection could be searched instantly, from anywhere in the building. The gentle clicking of computer keyboards began to replace the soft shuffling of catalog cards. The whispered conversations between librarians and patrons shifted from "where can I find the card catalog" to "how do I search for this topic?" Libraries installed terminals throughout their buildings, creating quiet alcoves where patrons could sit and explore their collections electronically. The soft glow of green phosphor screens, the gentle clicking of keyboards, and the satisfaction of finding exactly the right resource created a new kind of library experience. Librarians became teachers of this new technology, patiently showing patrons how to construct search queries, how to interpret results, and how to navigate between different databases. Reference desks evolved from places where librarians consulted printed indexes to command centers, where they helped patrons navigate the growing world of electronic information. In 1991, as the World Wide Web was taking its first tentative steps, a physicist named Paul Ginsparg created something beautiful in the quiet corners of academic research. Working at Los Alamos National Laboratory, surrounded by the desert silence of New Mexico, Ginsparg was frustrated by the slow pace of traditional academic publishing. Scientific discoveries were happening rapidly, but the process of peer review and publication meant that important findings might not reach other researchers for months or even years. Ginsparg envisioned a system where scientists could share their work immediately, creating a living library of cutting-edge research. His Arxiv system, launched from a simple computer server, allowed scientists to upload their research papers and make them instantly available to colleagues around the world. The system was elegantly simple. Researchers could submit papers via email, and they would be automatically processed and made available for download within hours. Arxiv wasn't just a repository, it was a sanctuary where ideas could be shared freely, where the latest discoveries in physics and mathematics could flow like gentle streams to researchers around the world. The soft hum of the server, the quiet satisfaction of uploading a new discovery, and the excitement of finding cutting-edge research created a new model for scholarly communication. The system grew organically, with researchers from around the world contributing papers and building a community around open access to knowledge. Late-night uploads from laboratories in different time zones created a continuous stream of new discoveries available to anyone with an internet connection. As you continue to relax, picture the quiet satisfaction of researchers who could now access cutting-edge knowledge from their own offices, no longer bound by the physical limitations of traditional libraries. A physicist in Tokyo could read about discoveries made just hours earlier in Geneva. A mathematician in São Paulo could build upon work published that morning by a colleague in Cambridge. This simple system, born from a desire to share knowledge more quickly, became the template for thousands of digital libraries that followed. It demonstrated that the internet could serve not just as a communication medium, but as a vast, distributed library where knowledge could be preserved and shared without the constraints of physical space or traditional publishing timelines. The 1990s brought a gentle acceleration of change that would transform libraries forever. The National Science Foundation's Digital Libraries Initiative, launched in 1994, funded 6 universities to explore how vast collections of knowledge might be stored and shared electronically. This $24.4 million investment would yield returns far beyond what anyone imagined. At Stanford University, 2 graduate students named Sergey Brin and Larry Page were quietly developing search algorithms in the peaceful atmosphere of the Computer Science Building. Their research, funded by the Digital Libraries Initiative, focused on how to find relevant information in vast collections of documents. Working late into the night, surrounded by the gentle hum of servers and the soft glow of computer screens, they developed techniques that would eventually become Google. But this wasn't just about technology. It was about reimagining the very nature of libraries. Digital libraries could preserve fragile manuscripts by creating perfect copies, could serve millions of users simultaneously, and could connect collections from around the world into a single, searchable sanctuary of knowledge. The University of Michigan began digitizing books on an unprecedented scale, developing techniques for high-speed scanning that could process thousands of pages per day. The gentle whir of scanning equipment, the careful handling of rare books, and the satisfaction of making previously inaccessible materials available to the world created a new kind of library work. At UC Berkeley, researchers developed systems for organizing and searching multimedia collections, not just text, but images, audio, and video. They envisioned digital libraries that could preserve and provide access to the full spectrum of human cultural expression. From ancient manuscripts to contemporary art, libraries began to digitize their most precious holdings, ancient manuscripts that had been too fragile to handle, rare photographs that told the stories of our past, and documents that had been locked away in distant archives. Each digitization project was an act of preservation and democratization, making treasures available to anyone with an internet connection. The British Library began digitizing medieval manuscripts, allowing scholars around the world to examine illuminated texts that had previously required special permission and travel to London. The gentle process of photographing each page, the careful color correction to capture the subtle hues of ancient inks, and the creation of detailed metadata created digital surrogates that were often clearer than the originals. As digital collections grew, something beautiful happened to physical library spaces. Freed from the need to store every book on site, libraries began to transform into community sanctuaries of a different kind. The quiet revolution wasn't just about technology. It was about reimagining what libraries could be in an age of digital abundance. Reading rooms that had once been filled with towering stacks of books were opened up, creating collaborative spaces where students could work together on projects. The gentle murmur of group discussions replaced the enforced silence of traditional libraries. Natural light, previously blocked by tall shelves, streamed through windows, creating bright, welcoming spaces for learning and discovery. Computer labs appeared where card catalogs once stood, but these weren't sterile technology centers. Libraries designed these spaces with the same care they had once devoted to reading rooms, creating quiet alcoves with comfortable seating where patrons could spend hours exploring digital collections. The soft clicking of keyboards and the gentle glow of screens created a new kind of library atmosphere. Libraries became places where people could access not just books, but the entire digital heritage of humanity. A student researching ancient Rome could examine higher-resolution images of manuscripts from the Vatican Library, watch documentary footage from archaeological excavations, and listen to recordings of Latin poetry, all from a single workstation. The transformation extended beyond just adding computers. Libraries redesigned their spaces to accommodate new ways of learning and working. Quiet study areas were balanced with collaborative zones. Traditional reference desks evolved into information commons, where librarians could provide both technical support and research guidance. Librarians evolved to becoming digital guides who could help navigate not just their own collections, but the vast ocean of online knowledge. They learned to teach digital literacy, to help people distinguish reliable sources from misinformation, and to preserve digital materials for future generations. The gentle art of helping people find information adapted to new tools while maintaining its essential human character. In the 2000s, cloud computing brought another quiet revolution to the world of libraries. The massive server rooms that had once been necessary to host digital collections could be replaced by connections to distant data centers, where vast amounts of storage and processing power were available on demand. This shift was like moving from individual wells to a vast, shared aquifer of knowledge. Small libraries could offer their patrons access to collections that rivaled the greatest institutions. A rural public library in Montana could provide its community with access to the same digital resources as Harvard or Yale. The democratization of knowledge reached new heights. The gentle hum of local servers was replaced by the quiet confidence of cloud connectivity. Libraries no longer needed to worry about hardware maintenance, software updates, or data backup. These concerns were handled by specialized providers who could offer better service at lower cost than individual institutions could manage. Cloud-based systems also enabled something beautiful: true collaboration between libraries. Collections could be shared, searches could span multiple institutions, and the boundaries between individual libraries began to dissolve into a gentle network of interconnected knowledge. A researcher could search the combined catalogs of hundreds of libraries simultaneously, finding resources that might have remained hidden in individual collections. The Hathatrist Digital Library, formed by a consortium of research libraries, exemplified this collaborative approach. Millions of books from dozens of institutions were combined into a single, searchable collection. The gentle work of digitization, once the burden of individual libraries, became a shared endeavor that benefited all participants. Interlibrary loan systems, once dependent on physical mail and telephone calls, became electronic networks where requests could be processed automatically. A book requested in the morning might be available for download by afternoon, eliminating the weeks of waiting that had once characterized resource sharing between libraries. Today, as you drift toward sleep, artificial intelligence is bringing yet another quiet transformation to digital libraries. AI systems can now read and understand the content of millions of documents, creating connections and insights that would take human scholars lifetimes to discover. These systems work like gentle digital librarians, available 24 hours a day to help researchers find exactly what they need. They can analyze the content of documents, identify themes and relationships, and suggest resources that human catalogers might never have connected. The soft processing of algorithms, invisible but constant, creates new pathways through the landscape of human knowledge. Machine learning systems can now transcribe handwritten documents, making centuries of historical records searchable for the first time. The gentle work of reading old manuscripts, once requiring specialized paleographic skills, can now be automated, opening vast archives to researchers who might never have been able to access them otherwise. AI can translate documents between languages in real time, breaking down barriers that have separated knowledge communities for centuries. A researcher reading a paper in English can instantly access related work published in Chinese, Arabic, or any other language, creating truly global conversations about shared interests. But perhaps most beautifully, AI is helping to preserve and organize the vast digital heritage we've created. It can identify and catalog images, recognize faces and objects in photographs, and ensure that digital materials remain accessible as technology continues to evolve. The gentle work of preservation, once entirely dependent on human effort, now benefits from tireless digital assistance. Natural language processing allows researchers to ask questions in plain English and receive sophisticated answers drawn from vast collections of documents. Instead of constructing complex search queries, a scholar can simply ask, "What did people think about democracy in 18th century France?" and receive a comprehensive analysis drawn from thousands of historical sources. As we near the end of our gentle journey tonight, imagine the digital libraries of tomorrow. Virtual reality might allow us to walk through reconstructed ancient libraries, to handle digital copies of manuscripts with haptic feedback that feels like touching the original parchment. The gentle rustle of virtual pages, the soft lighting of recreated reading rooms, and the immersive experience of being present in historical spaces will bring new dimensions to research and learning. Augmented reality could overlay digital information onto physical spaces, turning any room into a portal to the world's knowledge. A student studying biology could point their device at a flower and instantly access botanical databases, historical illustrations, and current research about that species. The gentle integration of digital and physical worlds will make learning more natural and intuitive. Quantum computing might enable searches through collections so vast that they encompass not just published works, but every email, every social media post, every digital trace of human thought and creativity. The gentle processing power of quantum systems could reveal patterns and connections across the entire spectrum of human expression. Machine learning will continue to make these vast collections more searchable and accessible, while blockchain technology might help preserve digital materials for centuries to come. The gentle, distributed nature of blockchain could ensure that important digital documents survive, even if individual institutions fail or disappear. But at its heart, the mission remains the same as it was in ancient Alexandria: to create sanctuaries where human knowledge can be preserved, organized, and shared. The technology changes, but the gentle dedication of librarians and the human hunger for understanding remain constant. Future digital libraries might be entirely virtual, existing as distributed networks with no physical location. Or they might be deeply integrated into our daily lives, providing contextual information and learning opportunities wherever we are. The gentle presence of vast knowledge, always available but never intrusive, will become as natural as breathing. as you settle deeper into relaxation, consider the remarkable continuity that connects ancient librarians, organizing scrolls by candlelight to modern systems powered by artificial intelligence. Across millennia, the fundamental mission has remained unchanged: to serve as bridges between questions and answers, between curiosity and understanding. The methods have evolved from clay tablets to papyrus scrolls, from handwritten catalogs to printed books, from card files to computer databases, from local collections to global networks. But the gentle dedication of those who preserve and organize knowledge has remained constant. Every digital library represents thousands of individual decisions made by librarians, programmers, and scholars who believed that knowledge should be preserved and shared. Each metadata record, each digitized page, each search algorithm embodies the same spirit that motivated ancient librarians to create the first catalogs. The quiet revolution that transformed libraries into digital sanctuaries wasn't driven by technology alone, but by the persistent human belief that knowledge belongs to everyone. From Paul Otlet's index cards to Google's search algorithms, from medieval monastery libraries to cloud-based collections, the underlying motivation has been the same: to make human knowledge accessible to all who seek it. As our story draws to a close, and as sleep begins to call to you, remember that you live in an age of unprecedented access to human knowledge. The digital libraries that surround us are the fulfillment of dreams that began with ancient scholars organizing scrolls by candlelight. Every search you perform, every digital book you read, every online database you access is part of this quiet revolution that has transformed libraries from physical repositories into digital sanctuaries accessible to all humanity. The gentle clicking of your keyboard connects you to a network of knowledge that spans continents and centuries. The vast collections that once required travel to distant cities can now be accessed from your bedroom. The rare manuscripts that once required special permission to view are now available at any hour of the day or night. The latest research, once locked behind institutional barriers, flows freely through networks that connect every corner of the globe. But perhaps most remarkably, this transformation has not diminished the essential character of libraries as sanctuaries of learning. The quiet atmosphere of contemplation, the gentle guidance of librarians, and the sense of being connected to something larger than ourselves. All of these qualities have been preserved and enhanced in the digital age. The gentle hum of servers in distant data centers carries the whispered conversations of millions of minds. Across time, ancient philosophers speaking to modern students, researchers sharing discoveries across continents, and librarians continuing their eternal mission of connecting questions with answers. As you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself as part of this great conversation that spans all of human history. Your curiosity connects you to every scholar who has ever sought knowledge, every librarian who has ever organized information, and every dreamer who has ever imagined a world where all knowledge is freely shared. Sleep peacefully, knowing that the vast sanctuary of human knowledge is always there, waiting quietly in the digital realm, ready to welcome any seeker who approaches with curiosity and wonder. The quiet revolution continues, gentle and persistent, ensuring that the light of human understanding will never be extinguished.
you.